just a little diversion from our X-33 presentations, our presenter from McDonnell Douglas, Dr. Galvitz, is here. However, he just arrived from Japan, so we're going to give him just a couple of minutes to recuperate. And it's what is known as just-in-time conferencing. Okay. Our next speaker is going to be Dr. Marshal H. Kaplan, and he participated on the National Research Council's Committee on Reusable Launch Vehicle Technology Development and Test Programs. He is the chairman of Launch Space Incorporated and a leader in launch vehicle design and engineering. So let's give our attention to Dr. Kaplan.
Thank you, Bob. Well, I'm kind of a filler here, and I get the feeling of the program, so I'll do my best. Well, Bill recuperates a trip from Japan. I put charts together here. Let me just one view graph. Actually, you can see better. Move this over there. There you go. Launch Space Incorporated, I might put a plug in here because we're not a vehicle maker. We're not making one of the X-33. We're not even buying for one of the X-33 vehicles. We're not even going after the $935 million. Nuts. We'd like to, but we haven't figured out how to do that yet. So we're going to let the three big ones go after it. We're in the business of information, knowledge, training, and so on, and we're the world's biggest or largest company doing training for space professionals. We do about 100 courses a year for people working in the business, so to speak. Here I have our logo on the bottom, but I have a picture on top that shows the Space Shuttle. The Space Shuttle, as we all know, is the famous NASA program that started out to be the answer to cheap access to space, and now only costs $400 million a flight or so, which is about $10,000 a pound if you break it down to payload. Now, $10,000 a pound is about twice what it costs to fly a Delta per pound. So we haven't quite made the economic bogey on the shuttle yet. The question is, will we ever do it? The answer is, I doubt it, but we'll see. Talk a little bit about access to space and where we're going with the current programs. I want to throw a few new ideas out while we're thinking about the X-33. Several things have happened over the past 3 or 4 years, which have led us to what we call the X-33 program, the SSTO program, and so on. Here you see some thoughts I had about how things evolve. We had several studies about 2 years ago. One of them was the NASA Access to Space study, which concluded that reusable launch vehicles are in fact the way to significantly reduce the cost of access to space. And I agree with that. In fact, it is an inevitable conclusion if you look at all the experience we've had with expendable launch vehicles and the costs that are involved with expendables, and I'll break those down in a minute for you. So the reusability is the right idea. The question really is single stage to orbit the right way to do it? And NASA thinks it is, and it may well be. We'll find out, about 2 or 3 years when we have the X-33 flying and see how well it does. If it succeeds and we can prove all the technologies, then we may well have an SSTO sometime in the next millennium. Exactly when, I'm not sure. However, if we really wanted to reduce the cost of space access now, which I'm more interested in than later, what do we have to do? Well, the answer is reusability, but the method is a little bit different. My approach is to look at two-stage reusables. And these were discarded in the NASA study because there were some arguments about being too complex to have 2 systems rather than 1. However, we're flying multi-stage vehicles. We have been since the 1960s. And so multi-stage vehicles are nothing new in reality. The question is, what is the technology? To build an SSTO today or in the next few years, there's a tremendous amount of technology investment. We don't have the technology in several areas. Many of them were mentioned already: lightweight structures, thermal protection systems that are lightweight and inexpensive and operable. engines that are fully reusable, fully restartable, throttleable. We just don't have a lot of these things yet that are ready to go. The question is, when will we have them and how much will it cost? So my approach is, why don't we build a two-stage immediately, a two-stage reusable immediately, and fly it, use it, and make some money. And so I'm basically talking about the two-stage to orbit vehicle. Now, how can we really save money in launch vehicles? Well, let's take a look at a little breakdown I have here. This shows the cost breakdown roughly of expendables on the left and reusables on the right. The right side is your typical two-stage reusable launch vehicle. On the left side, you see that a typical launch today, total price of a typical expendable launch is in a neighborhood, let's say $48, $50 million. And how does that break down? Well, if you look at all the contributors to the cost, starting out with the fuel or the propellants at the bottom, the cheapest thing in a launch vehicle is the propellants usually. So that's a very, very small amount of money. That's right at the bottom. Then we add to that the range cost and the cost of integrating the systems at the site and testing and so on, actual launch. That's a few bucks, not a lot, typically $2 to $3 million. The big thing in the expendable is the cost of the hardware, and the engineering goes along with that. Most a good part of your total cost, roughly 30, 40, maybe sometimes 50% of your total cost is in hardware, and the hardware is thrown away, literally thrown away every time you use it. That's really one of the big reasons why expendables are expensive. On top of that, just above the actual hardware cost, we have the mission operations and overhead costs and other things that are mixed in their profit and so on. That is a function directly of the hardware cost. So the amount of overhead, amount of profit, and so on are geared to the hardware cost. The higher the hardware cost, the higher the overhead profit, and so on. And the reason for that is because of the way the industry has been developed over the past 30 years. It's the culture of the industry. Now, once you have paid for all that, you still have to pay for insurance. Insurance is very, very expensive for expendables. It's in the range of 20% right now. Why is it so expensive? Because we have had so many failures in the past few years that insurance rates have gone up. Typical insurance costs are about 20% right now for a launch vehicle. If your launch vehicle costs $35 million, then you have to add another 20% in this case to that cost. That's $7 million. The payload has to be insured, or should be insured in many cases. Typical commercial payload is insured, and that ranges another 20% of the spacecraft costs. Spacecraft costs are typically roughly equal to launch vehicle costs. In this case, about $30 million spacecraft is on top of this vehicle. And so there's another $6 million. We add all that up, you get about $48 million. Now, if you want to save money, the way to save money is to take the hardware and reuse it, so you can amortize the cost of the hardware over many, many flights. Now, when you make a reusable launch vehicle, not only do you reuse the hardware, but you make it much, much more reliable. And you do this because you're building it for reuse. You're not building it for one use. Like a commercial airliner, you build a commercial airliner for high reliability and multiple use. So we see that not only has the hardware costs dropped tremendously, but the overhead and profit costs have dropped accordingly because they're still geared to the hardware costs. And on top of that, we have reduced the insurance cost to just a few percent. Insurance costs are geared to reliability. So if you get the reliability up, your insurance costs are going to go down. In this particular example, I have reduced the cost from $48 million per launch down to roughly $5 to $10 million per launch. Now that's a significant savings, significant. And that is I think, the right approach to really reducing the cost of access to space. Now, what does a two-stage reusable look like? Well, we don't have the fancy graphics artists that Rockwell and Lockheed Martin have, but here's a concept that we have. This is a two-stage reusable belly-to-belly launch vehicle, in which we have the first stage is a LOX kerosene stage. The second stage is a LOX hydrogen stage with current technology. The two stages lift off together. All engines are firing at the same time from lift off all the way up. Propellants are being supplied from the booster to the orbiter until separation. This is a vertical liftoff, vertical landing system. We did not use a horizontal landing system because we do not want to get into complicated landing gear, runways, and large facilities. And here's just a depiction of the separation dynamics of the booster with the orbiter. Booster burns out at some altitude, nominally 300,000 feet, Mach 6 or 7. It does kind of a wing over and heads back to the launch site. The orbiter goes on and does a normal ascent to orbit, injects it into orbit, and leaves its payload. And it comes back to Earth. Upon returning to the launch site, and by the way, the launch site we assume is one launch, one landing site, although this thing could land any place almost. But one operational site means a minimum cost facilities, one set of facilities at the launch site, one set of crew, ground crew, and so on. You come down and fly like an airplane until you go to the site, pull up and convert back to a rocket-powered vehicle, and then descend from hovering onto a launch area. The reason for this is to keep this vehicle simple in terms of landing systems, no flaps, no landing gear, and no complex runways. Now, a system like this is a challenge, but not a new technology system. Here are some of the challenges we've defined for such a system. Just to mention a few of these, and some of these are easily solved, some of them may take a little more work. Engine selection may require reusability, will require reusability, may require throttleability and restartability. However, it is, I think, possible to select engine sizes and so on, so we can get away with reusable and throttleable engines without restarting them. And there are some engines that are very close today to satisfying these requirements. Standardized payload interfaces, that was also mentioned already, and that's very important. Palletized payloads or standardized interfaces are very important for operational reusable vehicles. Avionics must assure safe return of the payload. That increases your insurance and increases your reliability. Must have a thermal protection system that's inexpensive, that is able to turn around in a short time, that is reusable. Must have the correct design for ascent, descent, and flyback. And these are just 5 of the design challenges that we've identified, but there really is no new technology in the sense that we have to fly a vehicle that's a single stage orbit. Thank you.
We have time for a couple questions.
Back here.
I have one for Patty.
Well, hold it. We're going to have a panel session after this. 3 o'clock.
Anybody back here? Yes, way back.
Just curious, if you're not planning to do a horizontal type landing, why do you bother with wings at all on the vehicle?
Well, the wings are there for one simple purpose, and that is to be able to navigate back to a single land and launch site. Without the wings, it's very difficult to get back to a single spot on the Earth. Some of your orbital maneuvers required to get back in reasonable time will require a large cross range on reentry. And the best way to do cross range on reentry is with a delta wing. It gives you quite a bit of leeway in terms of where you're going to land. So the wings are there to allow us to get back to the same site all the time.
I was thinking about what you were saying about SSTO versus TSTO. In the context of what Mr. Mattingly said at the beginning of his talk about airplane design convergence, I dabbled in technological forecasting, as have probably a lot of people in this room. And as you know, there comes a point where you push up, you're limited by the laws of physics, and your curve kind of flashes out. It seems to me you guys are at the very beginning, and the source of the controversy is there is more than one way to do this. It seems that anyone who says that these reusable systems can't work, I'm convinced after this afternoon they can both work. The only thing that remains to be seen is things that are impossible to predict. We really don't know what future markets are going to converge. I think in the short run, what you're saying is less daring out on the limb, therefore will succeed in the short run and maybe in intermediate steps. The advantage to the Lockheed Martin approach is that if we literally want airplane-like operation, the Lockheed Martin vehicle might be able to land at Kennedy. I wouldn't trust it at LaGuardia because stuff tends to slide into the bay. But, Kennedy being now a flat fee $30 cab ride, which I still think is depressing. We don't know what kind of need is going to emerge. I've been pushing solar power satellites, which I believe are going to weigh a lot less than the old design from the 1970s. We don't know at what point the launch costs, the cost of power from solar power satellites, the cost of power from oil are all going to cross, what year that's going to happen. Depending on when that happens is what's going to determine which of these things win out. I'd like to see them both win, but we really don't know.
I'm not sure there was a question.
It was
Let me comment on the market for a second. So, the market that the X-33 and the RLB is designed for is a NASA market. It is not a commercial market. NASA dictated those payloads. The 20,000 pounds of
With all
space.
respect, that is not true.
No.
That is flat not true.
That's right.
3 teams independently examined the market and developed a payload based on their decisions. It happens, they all reach the same conclusion because there's only one market out there.
We will have time.
One question on that, though. In that, there was no examination of space-based operations.
If I may.
Do we have
we have to
time
move on.
for questions for the panel? Because we're sort of getting into this versus that.
Well, we can
We're
get
going to have a panel following this discussion in March.
Will there ever time for questions?
One panel.
One more? Thank you.
I can see there are a lot of questions on this versus that, and we'd like to have those type of questions after our panel discussion. We will have all the speakers all together, and then you can ask them these types of questions.